Hi poetry lovers, welcome to my channel Bella Poetry. My name is Bella and I love beautiful poetry. In this segment we will start the second series of Bella Poetry, which will focus on the best love poetry in the world, in my opinion, and the life stories of the poets that penned them. I hope you will really enjoy this series. But before we talk about before I read the poetry, I would like to discuss the life stories of these poets and to assume, because not always we know who the poetry was dedicated to think about who this poem was devoted to, who the poet wrote this poetry for. And so we'll discuss to our knowledge who were the people that these poets loved during their lifetimes. The first poet that we will talk about, his name, he was a Persian poet, a mystic, a Sufi mystic, and an Islamic scholar. His name was Rumi. Rumi was born on September 30th, 1207, in a village, Waksh, by the river whose name was also Waksh, in today's Tajikistan. And his father was a preacher and a jurist, and his mother was called Mumina Khatun. And so the family stayed in Tajikistan until 1212. But in 1212 there was a Mongolian invasion, and the family decided to make a big move. The father, Rumi's father, took his whole family and his disciples and moved to the Western Asia, to Samarkand. When Rumi was 18 years old, he met another very famous Persian poet whose name was Attar. Attar was very observant, and one time when he saw Rumi and his father walking down the road, his father was a little bit ahead of Rumi, he commented, "Here comes the sea followed by an ocean." In other words, he felt that Rumi had even more potential than his father, that he was greater than his dad, who was also a very smart scholar and a jurist. The meeting with Attar left a very deep impact on Rumi, and it inspired him to write as well. When Rumi turned 18, he married a woman with whom he had 2 children. Her name was Gohar, and he had 2 sons with her. One was called Sultan Walad, and the second son's name was Aladdin Kalabey. And unfortunately, his first wife passed away pretty young, and Rumi married his second wife and had 2 children with her, Amir and Malakeh Khatun. So in May 1228, when Rumi was 21 years old, his father and their family finally settled in Konya, Anatolia, which is today's Turkey. And so Rumi lived most of his life under the Persianate Seljuk Sultanate of Rome, where he produced his works and where he died in 1273 at the age of 66. So his dad became the head of the madrasa. Madrasa was like a religious school. And when he died, Rumi, who was only 25 years old, took his place and became a teacher. So from 1240, 1241, Rumi's public life began. He became a jurist and an Islamic jurist, and his job was to issue fatwas and giving sermons in the mosques of Konya. He also served as an Islamic teacher, and he taught his followers in madrasa, which was a religious school. But at that time, he also traveled to Damascus and spent 4 years there. And at that time, he met a person that will change his life and influence it in many different ways. The person that he met, his name was Shams, and Shams al-Din Tabrizi, and he arrived in Konya in 1244. They met, they became extremely close, they were never seen apart, and basically he preached the possibility and the necessity of a direct communication with God. So Rumi became the disciple of Shams, and he became a very close friend of his. And his kids and his disciples, Rumi's disciples, became very jealous of his relationship with Shams. Since all this happened more than over 800 years ago, we don't really know what was the real relationship, the essence of the relationship between Rumi and Shams. But scholars, some people say that the relationship could have been physical, and it was kind of a great love affair of Rumi's life. We don't really know. Or maybe they were just very close in their thinking. They had a lot of things in common. They talked about religion and philosophy and poetry. And Rumi felt that he was kind of his, maybe even a soulmate. I don't know. But suddenly Shams disappeared. And people suspected that Rumi's sons, who were very jealous of this relationship, came and took him out of the house. Somebody knocked on the door. He came to the door and he disappeared. And Rumi was obviously extremely upset. They say that they killed him. Rumi was very upset. He looked for him everywhere. He even reached Damascus in search for Shams, but he couldn't find him until he realized, and that's what he wrote: "Why should I seek? I am the same as he. His essence speaks through me. I have been looking for myself." So obviously this relationship was very deep and very complicated. So at that time in his life, he was in his 30s, he started writing poetry and chanting, and he invented the dance that we know today as whirling dervish dance. I'm sure that you've seen it. It's a very famous Turkish dance. There are people in white outfits, skirts, and white hats, and they kind of spread their arms and they twirl around, and these are called whirling dervishes. Very popular dance in Turkey today. And so very soon Rumi gained the popularity, the reputation as an ecstatic visionary, and he devoted his whole life to worship and writing. The next 12 years of his life in Anatolia, Rumi spent dictating 6 volumes of his masterwork, which was called Masnawi. And in December 1273, Rumi became sick and he died in Konya. His death was mourned by a very diverse community of Konya: Christian, Jews, other people carried his body through the streets of Konya, and they mourned his death. He was buried next to his father, and a splendid shrine that was called the Green Tomb was erected over his burial place. And there was an epitaph on the shrine. It said, "When we are dead, seek not our tomb in the earth, but find it in the hearts of men." In other words, it's not important where you're buried, but it's important what impact you had on humanity. Like other mystic and Sufi poets of Persian literature, Rumi's poetry speaks of love. He believed that love makes the world turn round. And that's what he, in verses in his famous work, Masnawi, he describes in detail the universal message of love. And he wrote, "The lover's cause is separate from all other causes. Love is the astrolabe of God's mysteries." And he also chanted a lot. He read poetry, he wrote poetry, and he chanted. His favorite, he probably meditated a lot also, being a Sufi mystic. And he played an instrument which was called ney. It was a flute, a reed flute, a flute made out of reeds. Rumi's work was translated into many, many languages, including Russian, German, Urdu, Turkish, Arabic, Bengali, French, Italian, and Spanish, and is being presented in different formats. People, they give concerts reading his poetry, there are movies about him, workshops, dance performances. Actually, on September 30th, 2007, in Turkey, they celebrated the 800th birthday of Rumi. And there was a giant whirling dervishes performance, ritual performance, and people celebrated this amazing and very talented man. And as always, I read to you a couple of quotes by a poet. So his quotes are, "Do not feel lonely. The entire universe is inside you." And amazing quote. And the second one, "Lovers don't finally meet somewhere. They've been with each other all along." Kind of the idea of having a soulmate or looking for your soulmate. I have a feeling that he wrote these quotes about Shams. It seems like his relationship with Shams was very special. And the love poem that he wrote, I think, also kind of supports that. It's called "Love is Reckless." Love is reckless, not reason. Reason seeks a profit. Love's common strong, consuming herself, unabashed. Yet, in the midst of suffering, love proceeds like a millstone, hard surface and straightforward. Having died of self-interest, she risks everything and asks for nothing. Love gambles away every gift God bestows. Without cause, God gave us being. Without cause, give it back again. Beautiful poem. And obviously when he talks about love having no reason, that love is reckless, for some reason I feel that he doesn't talk about the traditional love that he had with his two wives, but he talks about something more dangerous and more unacceptable at that time, which was his love, maybe platonic one, with Shams, with whom he felt such unity. So this is it for today's segment. I hope you liked the story about Rumi and you enjoyed listening to his love poem called "Love is Reckless." Please come visit us again. Don't forget to like and subscribe so we can bring more segments for your enjoyment. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye-bye.